Best friend asked me to be a groomsman. His fiancée made unreasonable demands. I took a job that overlapped the wedding. He exploded. I backed out, posted on Reddit to vent. They found it, accused me of betrayal, and the friendship died. Am I the for taking a job that conflicted with my best friend's wedding after he refused to compromise on unreasonable demands using a throwaway? Obviously. So my best friend got engaged about a year ago and asked me to be a groomsman. I said yes immediately because that's what you do. We've known each other since like middle school, and I was genuinely excited. But then planning started and it got weird. His fiancée, who I've never been super close with, started making all these demands about what groomsmen needed to do. Custom shirts, specific haircuts, mandatory bachelor party at her chosen location, contributions to things I never agreed to. It was getting expensive and honestly kind of controlling. I mentioned to my friend that some of the stuff seemed excessive. Like, I get wanting your wedding to look nice, but requiring specific haircuts felt over the line. He just said, "It's not that big of a deal. Come on," and shut down that conversation. That's when I kinda started pulling back emotionally from the whole thing. Fast forward to about 3 months before the wedding, and I got a new job offer that required me to relocate for like 2 weeks of training right before the wedding. I told him immediately and said I tried to reschedule it or work something out. He lost it. Started saying I was abandoning him and that real friends would just turn down the job. I reminded him that I need to actually have a career and I was still trying to be there for the wedding. Here's the thing, though. I could have tried harder to reschedule. I didn't really push back with my new employer because honestly, I was kind of over the whole wedding stress at this point. I think subconsciously I wanted an out. His fiancée apparently told him it was suspicious timing and that I was being selfish. My friend basically told me I was either fully committed or not committed at all. I ended up keeping the job training and going, but I told him I'd only make it back the day before the wedding. That mean I couldn't go to the rehearsal dinner or the bachelor party. He said that was unacceptable and that if I couldn't be there for everything, then I shouldn't be in the wedding at all. So, I dropped as a groomsman like a week before the wedding. I was upset, but also kind of relieved, which tells me something about how I was feeling about the whole thing. Now, a few months later, he's still mad at me. He says I chose a job over my best friend. I say he chose his fiancée's demands over our friendship. My other friends are split. Some say I should have just turned down the job. Others say the wedding demands were unreasonable and he was being controlling about it. The thing is, I could have handled this better. I could have been more honest about feeling uncomfortable instead of just pulling back. And yeah, I definitely could have tried harder with the job thing. But he also could have been more flexible and reasonable about what he was asking of me. Am I the nah? How am I word? Why what's with the demands in weddings these days? I just don't get it. I think Groom created the whole situation just by shutting down the concerns about these excessive demands and then just going with a nuclear option of all or nothing when OP had a legitimate career opportunity. If I was in that situation, my friend told me I can make it to the wedding, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to attend some other stuff because I got a real important job opportunity that it's going to change his life. I'd be happy for that person. So yeah, I don't really blame OP for just stepping back out of this. But a commenter says, not the people who are super uptight and controlling about having the perfect wedding are always going to end up frustrated, angry, and disappointed because something will go wrong. A true friend would have been cheering you on in your new job rather than asking you to sacrifice your own future to make them feel better for a day. Opie says, yeah, I appreciate that. And you're right that I was excited about the job and it was a real opportunity. I just wish I'd been more upfront with him about how the whole wedding planning thing was stressing me out instead of just going quiet about it. Like if I'd sat down with him early on and said, hey, I'm excited to be in your wedding, but some of these demands are making me uncomfortable. Maybe we could have worked it out. Instead, I just started pulling back and then used the job as an escape hatch. That wasn't fair to him, even if his fiancée was being unreasonable. But yeah, you're not wrong that he could have been supportive instead of making it all about what he needed from me. A best friend should want you to win at your career too. Comment reply saying, I'm getting the sense that you knew consciously or not that having that sort of discussion with your friend would not have been productive. Hope you replied saying, yeah, you're hitting on something that's been bothering me since I read your comment. I think part of me knew that having a conversation would make things worse, not better. Like if I'd brought up the demands being unreasonable, he would have just gotten defensive and told me she's not that bad or made me feel bad for not being supportive. And honestly, that says something about our friendship too. If I can't even be real with him without worrying about how he'll react, that's not great. I think I was also scared that if I pushed back on the wedding stuff, he'd double down even harder to prove to her that he was loyal or whatever. So, I just didn't say anything, which meant I was bottling it up, getting resentful, and then when the job thing came up, I was already checked out. You're probably right that I wasn't really looking to have that conversation productively. I was already resigned to the situation being what it was. That's on me. I should have at least tried, even if it might have been awkward. Cum says, not the but you probably weren't going to be seeing this friend until he gets divorced. If his wife doesn't like you and he seems to go along with her. Your friendship was doomed before the job came into it. Better that you invest in the job. That's more of a future than your friendship anyway. Opie says, damn, that's kind of a harsh take, but I get it. And yeah, I've definitely thought about the fact that things might not go back to normal between us. Like if she already didn't like me and he was willing to just cut me out over the wedding stuff. That's not really friendship material anyway. But I don't want to write him off completely just yet. You know, we have like 15 years of history. I'm hoping once the wedding is over and the newlywed phase wears off, he'll realize how she was pushing him around and maybe want to reconnect or at least apologize for the ultimatum. That said, you're probably right that I should be realistic about it. I'm not going to sit around waiting for him to get his head straight. I'm going to focus on the new job and the people in my life who actually have my back. If the friendship survives, it survives. But I'm not going to sacrifice myself trying to fix something he's not willing to work on from his end. Opie replies to a comment talking about the possibility of the bride's abuse towards his friend/the groom and says, wow, this actually hit me differently. Haven't thought about it from the abuse angle before, but now that you mention it, yeah, some of that stuff is ringing bells. He used to be way more social before she came around. Like we'd do guy trips and hang out all the time, and now it's hard to get him to come to anything without her. And I've definitely heard her talk down to him in front of people. Like make jokes at his expense that aren't really funny. He just laughs it off. But it's always felt uncomfortable. I don't know if it's full-on abuse or just a shitty dynamic, but you're right that the whole suspicious timing commenting isolating me from the friend group feels like a pattern. She was also weird about him having a bachelor party at all. Kept trying to plan it herself or limit where it could be. I think you're right that all I can do at this point is let him know I'm there for him if things change. I've been so mad at him that I didn't really consider he might be getting pushed around too. Like he was probably stressed about pleasing her and losing me at the same time. I'm going to try reaching out in a few months when things calm down. Not to rehash the wedding stuff, just to see if he wants to grab a beer or something. If he's willing to meet halfway, maybe we can salvage this. If the relationship stuff is what I'm starting to think it is, at least he'll know I didn't completely bail on him. Thanks for this perspective genuinely. Another commenter says, everyone sucks here, although you far less than him and friend who say you should pick their wedding over a job is nuts. But here's the thing about getting married. He's supposed to put his spouse first. He's supposed to pick her over you. Does that mean she's actually right? No, but the wedding is not about you. You could have been a grown-up and said, that $1,000 per night hotel is not in my budget. How about an Airbnb? Or I like my current haircut, so I'm not going to change that, but I promise I'll do XYZ to make it look neat and good in the pictures. Instead, you kind of wimped out, blamed the job training, and caused a distance that didn't need to be there. Opie says, I hear you, but it wasn't just about budget stuff. The demands were controlling, and he shut down any conversation about it. Yeah, I could have pushed harder on the job thing, but by that point, I was already exhausted from being told to just accept everything. That's fair to call me out on, but he had a choice too. And he picked letting her call the shots over having his best friends back. But honestly, I appreciate the perspective. It's making me think about what I could have done differently instead of just blaming the situation. That's helpful, even if I don't fully agree. Someone said, how much was the wedding going to cost OP if he attended? Opie said, good question. All in, probably around $1,500 to $2,000. The custom shirt alone was $300. Then there was the bachelor party. They picked this resort that was stupid expensive. Travel costs since the wedding wasn't local. Gift plus all the random stuff they wanted us to contribute to. And that's not counting the haircut or the shoes they wanted us to buy. For context, I was making okay money at my old job, but not like rolling in it. The new job pays better, which is another reason I was stressed about potentially turning it down. $2,000 is not nothing to me. So OP did come in with an update and it said major update. Things got worse, not better. I decided to actually call him instead of waiting for next week. Figured I'd strike while the IM was hot since I was feeling like maybe we could actually talk about this. He answered and seemed kind of cold right off the bat. I started by apologizing for checking out and not being honest with him about how stressed the wedding stuff was making me. I thought that would open things up. Instead, he said, yeah, well, you've been posting about this on Reddit, haven't you? His wife apparently saw a thread that sounded like it could be us, and showed it to him. And now he's pissed. He's saying I'm airing dirty laundry online for strangers to judge him and his wife, that I'm trying to make her look bad. I literally don't even know how she found it. I was only up for like an hour before I called him. The post just went up. I'm pretty sure I didn't leave any obvious details that would lead back to us, but either she recognized stuff or someone in our friend group figured it out and told them. Either way, it feels like a violation. I tried to explain that I used a throwaway and kept things vague, but he wasn't hearing it. He said if I'm willing to post about our friendship online, then clearly I don't actually value the friendship. He told me not to contact him again and blocked me on everything. His wife apparently also texts some of the other groomsmen saying I'm trash-talking them online, which obviously isn't great for my reputation in the friend group. So yeah, the opposite of reconciliation happened. I'm actually furious right now because I came to Reddit to process my feelings and now it's literally destroyed what was left of the friendship. I don't know if I should have told him or if I should have just kept it to myself. I genuinely don't know what to do now. And there was a couple of comments after this one. This first one was downvoted, but OP did respond to it. It said probably going to get downvoted but everyone sucks and also a coward. You used the job as an excuse to get out of a bunch of things you didn't want to do, but that you had committed to do. I'm not going into whether the requests were reasonable. I've seen both better and worse, but you had a lot of notice on the requirements of being a groomsman in the wedding. And if you weren't okay with them, the option isn't demand they change it. It's to politely pull out and attend as a guest. You didn't do that. Instead, you quietly stewed in your resentment and then at relatively short notice grabbed an excuse to get out of all the elements that had annoyed you and then a shock this ended your friendship. His wife is absolutely correct to be suspicious of the timing. By your own admission, you didn't even really try to make it work. Like a coward, you went, yippee, this is my get-out-of-jail-free card, only to discover it's nearly certainly cost a friendship. The only reason you aren't a complete is your former friend shouldn't have suggested you not take the job. If you genuinely tried to get the training moved, which you didn't, and failed, he should have taken it with good grace and just said, really sucks. You're not going to be there for everything, but please pursue this opportunity, and I'm happy you can still make it on the day as a guest. I suspect part of the reason he responded so badly is he suspects, as does his wife, that you made no genuine attempt to accommodate both the training and his wedding events, and this was just your excuse. The reality is you're an adult. You knew about the wedding plans well in advance, which aren't even close to the worst requirements I've heard, and had ample opportunity to pull out if you didn't want to accommodate. You didn't do that. Sometimes it's not what we do, it's how we do it. To which OP responded saying, okay, yeah, this one stings because you're not wrong. I'm reading this and I can't really argue with most of it. You're right that I knew about the requirements up front and I could have just pulled out as a guest instead of committing and then quietly resenting everything. That would have been the adult move. Instead, I just sat with it and let it build up, which is exactly what you're calling me out for. And yeah, I didn't try hard to make the job work with the wedding. I'm being honest about that now. When the job came up, I was already looking for an escape hatch, and I took it without really fighting for a compromise. His wife being suspicious about the timing makes sense because she probably picked up on the fact that I wasn't actually trying. The thing is, this comment hits different now because the friendship is actually over. And after reading, this makes me realize I probably made that happen through my own choices more than I was willing to admit before. I was a coward about the wedding stuff, and then I used the job to get out of it. I can't take any of it back now, though. And posting it on Reddit was apparently the nail in the coffin. And another commenter says, reality check for all the brides and grooms out there. Your wedding is nothing more than a party. If you are literally asking people's lives to revolve around a party, you're taking things way too far. Asking people to alter their appearance or not take a job for your party is insane. ELP is better off without friends like this. Also, just saw the update. I'm sorry for OP. You seem like a reasonable, sweet person. You did nothing wrong. The bride and groom trashed a friendship for a deluded princess fantasy. OP says, yeah, honestly, that's what I've been thinking more and more after all this. Like, I get that weddings are a big deal for the couple, but when you start expecting everyone else to put their entire lives on hold or make personal sacrifices for it, it's just not reasonable. There are ways to celebrate without making people feel like props or employees. I wish I'd spoken up sooner instead of just letting it wear me down. I do feel like I dodged a bullet in the long run, even if it sucks to lose a friendship over it. If someone's going to cut you off for not bending over backwards for their party, they probably weren't really your friend. Lot of comments after this talking about the bride picking the haircuts and the bachelor party, etc., and them telling OP to turn down the job and also commenting on the comments that's against OP saying that, you know, he's the one who effed up here. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from a throwaway account. There's a bunch of trigger warnings on this one of controlling behavior, alcoholism, mentions of death of a loved one, threats, destruction of property, financial abuse. So, if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. It is likely the last story of this video. But now we're going to get on with it. It's titled, My Male 28, Fiancé Female 28 Randomly Ended Our Relationship. Is this abuse? I'm not sure if this is the right place for this. Please forgive the long post. My 28 male fiancé, 28 female, has always been very controlling. She gets upset when I don't do things exactly right and often contradicts herself. She wants me to go out and be more social, but would call in and yell at me when I do. She wants me off the phone, but sits there on hers. She wants me to go to the gym, but complains when I'm there too long. Honestly, I've been pretty love-struck, so I didn't really pick up on these things until everything fell apart. She has a bit of a drinking problem. Not that she drinks constantly, but when she does, she doesn't know her limit. With wedding planning and my busy work schedule to pay for the wedding, she tends to go out on weekends with her girlfriends. Since I'm home late anyway and she enjoys it, so she deserves to unwind after a busy week. We typically do lunches and overnight trips when my schedule will allow it, and when I'm off in the evenings, we make dinner together to connect. She's nitpicked before, but I kind of wrote it off as her personality and always adjusted. Example, she didn't want me running the washer/dryer so much, so I went from twice to once a week. I work 2 jobs and one is construction, so my clothes get dirty fast. She thought I had too much clothes, even though we each have the same storage space. So, I donated the clothes she didn't like. She didn't like when I cook late coming home from my second job, event staff, so I'd pick something up on the way home. I felt like this was regular couple stuff. All in all, she's been excited about the wedding and our new apartment, so I thought everything was good. Long story short, a few weeks ago, she came home hammered, which is nothing new, but she got outright mean. I wrote it off as just being drunk. Sometimes she playfully teases me when she's drinking, but when she's sobered up, she was still really mean. Her controlling attitude escalated until she was pretty much unbearable. And she ended up telling me she deserved better and that she wanted to start over and I needed to leave. She started listing all these weird faults. I don't get along with her friends who I have never met because they don't live in our country. I don't make an effort with her family. I'm very close to her brother. We game often together and we have dinner with her parents once a month and I'm too dependent on her. I do tend to put her first a lot, but I kind of thought that was normal. Then she basically told me to leave. I gave her some space and slept at my brother's a few nights asking how he thought I should fix this. And it was then he pointed out that she is kind of abusive. So, maybe this was a good thing. I don't know. She's still the love of my life and I can't wrap my head around all of this. After a few nights, I went back because I needed more clothes, but also because I wanted to see if we could talk things out. She flat out refused and said her friends all agreed. My issue now is she is downright hostile. She is nice every so often when she wants something, but other than that, she is short, cold, often annoyed. She basically said, "We're done," and she's keeping the apartment and I need to figure it out. Then radio silence for a month outside of a few drunk "I miss you" texts while I couch hopped. The last time I went over to grab clothes, she kissed me and basically said she wished things could be different and talked about the proposal and all the little things we've done together. So, I tried to talk it out again, but she got super angry and kicked me out again. Now she is telling me I need to pay for half the rent because I'm on the lease. I spoke to the landlord about potentially removing me from the lease, but he said she has to agree and she's refusing. She's refusing to agree to sign the lease over to someone else. What can I even do here? My brother pointed out that since I'm on the lease, she can't keep me from staying there, but the apartment is small. Being practically on top of one another, I can't see how it will work with her behavior. She's refusing to even be civil. I asked her to reconsider finding a new tenant and she basically says she doesn't see why she should have to move just because I couldn't change. My brother said I could make a case for abuse to get off the lease, but I don't want to do that to her. She can be mean, but she's a nice person and we've been together for 6 years. I just feel that's a step too far. My mother agrees. I honestly don't think this is abuse. Is this abuse? They are really pushing that I go forward with this, especially after my brother read some texts, but I feel like if I end the tendency citing abuse, that's dishonest and could further upset her. It absolutely sounds abusive to me, and the fact that you got family members pointing this out at the same time is just screaming for it. And it just feels like Opie is in that fog that and he can't see what's right in front of him. You know, she's working 2 jobs to fund this wedding. Well, she's out drinking and he can only wash his construction clothes once a week because she doesn't like the washer running. You know? There's loads of controlling stuff in this. And then we got that classic thing that we see in a lot of these abusive stories where, you know, she's dumping him, refusing to talk to him, punishing him, but then giving him kisses when he tries to leave for good, etc., and then keeping him on the lease, so he's financially trapped while she's treating him like at the same time. And one of the commenters says she's extremely controlling and seems abusive. I don't know about Ontario, but where I live, if 2 parties are on a lease, they're both responsible. But if one person leaves, the other person is 100% responsible. Look up the laws where you live. You may be able to just leave and not be responsible. Sorry you're going through this. I hope you can heal from this quickly. Opie says she's honestly a nice person. Everyone seems to love her, but I think I'm starting to see our relationship was imbalanced. I've tried looking it up and it seems even if I leave, if my name is on the lease, I'm on the hook. The The landlord agreed to hand the lease off to someone else, but she just flat out refusing, and I don't get why. If she wants to start over, I think starting over in a new place would be what she wanted. It also says I can't change the lease unless she agrees. Combs says, at first, I thought that the purpose of your post was to get advice about whether to cancel the wedding engagement and break up, but it sounds like actually you're just asking about how to handle the apartment lease. I think she's abusive, but even if I'm wrong, the bottom line is that regardless of whether her behavior fits the exact definition of abusive, she's hostile and selfish and unstable and drunk. Hopefully, you've decided you're not going to marry this train wreck. You don't want to spend 50 years with this toxic person, right? As for the apartment lease, go and consult an expert. Go see a lawyer who knows about local rent laws, even if you can't afford that. In some cities, there are non-profit tenants' rights organizations that have lawyers who do pro bono consultations. Opie says, I will definitely see about a lawyer. There's more to confirm if this is abuse, because if it is, they may let me off the lease without her permission. Combs says in quotes, she can be mean, but she's a nice person. Nope, says, I know. My brother keeps pointing out how ridiculous that is to say, too. I should say she's nice to other people, even though she's sometimes mean to me. It's the mask, isn't it? And she got comfortable to let that mask slip once you're hooked. Combs says if her friend lives in a different country, then who are the friends she's drinking with? Do you know them? She seems to spend a lot of time with friends. Is that via her phone/computer or in person? I don't know that I believe much about this version of events. You depict yourself in a very strange manner. Calculating perhaps. However, I agree that your ex is a very disagreeable lady and you should have no compunction in getting her out of your life by whatever means necessary. Good luck. Wise up and move on. Says she hangs out with her friends from work who I know. But when she ended things, she said, it was because I didn't make an effort with specific friends who are very important to her, who are online friends, have never met or had the opportunity to connect with. Another commenter quotes saying, she can be mean, but she's a nice person, and says, great, so, are we just making up new meanings for words? Because that sentence doesn't make any sense. Opie says, yeah, you're right. I meant more in the sense that she's a nice person outside of our relationship, and I thought in our relationship outside of disagreements. She gets along with everyone at her jobs enough to build friendships and go out with them on weekends. She has gaming friends and just seems overall very personable. Combs says just curious which parts of her behavior seem nice to you. She has been downright awful to you. She manipulates you, tries to control you, gaslights you, takes zero responsibility for her role in the relationship. Onk your lucky stars you aren't marrying her. Your brother is correct. Give her a choice. She agrees to take you off the lease or you will make a case against her. Opia replies to him. Before all this, she got along really well with my family. She's thoughtful with her co-workers with shifts and stuff like that and always made a point to include my mother in things. My mom really loved her up until this past few months. Honestly, even outings and dates were really good. It's almost like we got home and she was always irritated. I'm going to try again to discuss the apartment with her. But I feel like with the tenant laws here, I'm kind of stuck if she doesn't agree. I don't decide to try and get off because of abuse. So, it was about 8 days later that Opie came in with a first update and said things have kind of snowballed out of control. A day or so after I made my first post, my brother sat me down and kind of discussed the game plan with me. The first thing he told me to do was take the money I put in the joints account meant for our wedding out since she had access to that and she was pretty pissed at me. Not sure why since she ended things then and I only recently found out it was because she cheated. I've been saving for over a year, sometimes putting in as much as $600 a month, and I also put my Christmas bonus in there. I don't know what I expected to happen after I did that, but things escalated pretty quickly after that. Add screenshots of how out of control the text had got, but it won't let me add them to this post. The long and short of it was she was upset that I all but emptied the account, only leaving what she had contributed. She had only put a couple of thousand in because towards the beginning of planning, she decided I should be the one to pay for the bulk of the wedding. Looking back now, I can't believe I agreed. Her argument was that I should have kept all my money in the account to pay for my portion of the rent and I had stolen from her. She kept calling me a thief, even when I showed her a screenshot of my banking transfers into the account, and I only transferred out the exact amount. She only got more upset because I refused to talk to her in person or answer the phone, so I could have everything we discussed in texts. She had her dad call me, basically telling me to do the right thing, which just meant give her all of the money I'd saved since it was for her anyways. When I refused, she started calling my mother almost non-stop. She would start calling her around 9 p.m. and sometimes wouldn't stop until 1 a.m. At first, I told my mom to block her number, but my brother said just put it on silent so we had a record of how often she was calling. One night, she called my mom 36 times. My mother has been having some health issues since my father passed in June. So, my sister has been living with her when the calls obviously made my sister upset and it's a whole thing now. My sister ended up finding her a harassment report with the police and we're hoping that will help me get off the lease if we can prove she's being abusive. She also called both my ex and her father and told them if had anything to say, it would go through her. I filed out an N-15 form, but the officer I spoke to about the harassment didn't seem convinced it would be approved because he wouldn't classify this as domestic abuse. I guess I just have to cross my fingers and hope for the best. All this definitely showed me who she is. I didn't think I could fall out of love with someone so quickly. Thanks for all the replies in my initial post. Someone says to OP, inform your employer first thing Monday about the harassment. Take your evidence, explain what's happening, and then that way when she shows up at your job, she can be immediately trespassed. OP says, I hadn't actually considered this. Thank you. I'll let both my employees know. Someone says, I'll talk to your landlord in person. Show the harassment, the escalation, that you need to get out of here and the only tie left is the lease. You might not legally have a case yet, but if there's good cause, someone will work with you. Let them know you physically vacated on whatever date. OP says, I spoke to the landlord shortly after the breakup, and he was very clear about my options. Based on how dismissive he was of everything, I don't see that changing unless she agrees to have the lease reassigned to her. Tom says, I'm glad for you that she ended it. She is one huge red flag. Please work on your self-respect and worth so you don't put up with this again. You may want to see an attorney and make her communicate with them. When does your lease run out? Opie says, I'm in the process of looking for an attorney. Unfortunately, the lease is until October 2026. Nearly a month later, Opie comes in with what's titled the final update, and it says, I tried to post this a week or so ago and it didn't go through because of how close the posts were, but I knew there were a few people who wanted updates. Fingers crossed this time it works. First and foremost, thanks to everyone who messaged me offering advice and resources. It made a huge difference. I have a lot to update on, but I try to keep it short. Once I was out, the pattern of abuse became more evident. The emotional roller coaster she always had me on was one I didn't really realize I got on until I finally got off. I went into the apartment with my sister, female 36, while my ex, female, 28, was at work to clear all my stuff. I was initially going to go with my brother, male, 34, but in the course to my mother, between 5 to 20 a night on weekends, she sometimes physically threatened people and my sister wanted to be there in case she did get physical since my brother and I wouldn't be able to do much if she did. Obviously, neither of us would hit her or anything, so this made the most sense. The police also didn't seem to want to accompany us. We cleared the bulk of my staff out, but unfortunately, she did come home early because, well, that's been my luck lately. She yelled a bunch, which we ignored, but unfortunately, my sister spoke to her before we left because a bunch of my stuff was missing. I didn't care about a lot of it at this point, but my sister was upset the PS5 was missing and she told her she didn't know where she put it, but she needed to get it because she wasn't leaving without it. Tensions were obviously high as my sister is currently living with my mom and taking care of her. So, she's been present for the non-stop calls on the weekend. When my sister kept pressing her about it and ignoring everything else she was saying, my ex picked up a picture frame and threw it at me for bringing her here. At this point, everything boiled over. My sister got between us and when she slapped my sister, a fight ensued. Long story short, police arrived and my sister told them she wanted to file another report which made my ex surrender the PS5 and admit she had thrown a bunch away. Because of all this, the landlord was made aware and I've been taken off the lease. A few days after, her mother called me. She basically wanted me to reconsider the reports filed because she was worried my ex would have charges that would follow her around and she didn't think it was fair after I called off the wedding and abandoned her. I told her that she needed to have a conversation with my ex about the lies she was telling and her harassing my mother before I hung up. That's the long and short of it. Hopefully, I'm done now and there won't be any more updates. Thanks for listening to me and helping me through this. I don't know what came from that conversation, but her mother did send mine flowers, so I'm guessing at least some truth came out. Anyway, I'm hoping to put all this behind me at this point. Now that I'm done with the apartment headache, I'm going to grief counseling with my family and working on starting over. So, a commenter said to Opie about getting counseling, freezing his credit so his ex doesn't do stupid, and Opie said, this is all amazing advice. My mother and sister have restraining orders at this time. It's all been really crazy and I'm truly grateful to be out of the thick of it hopefully. I've spoken with her brother and it seems like at least he and her mom are backing her into a corner and questioning her for what she originally told them and her behavior. I'm hoping if nothing else that pressure from her family will keep her from keeping up a lot of her behavior since the split. If not, we have next steps planned. Come says, I'm glad you're out and safe. Do not drop the charges. If she isn't held accountable, what's going to happen in her next relationship? Charges won't ruin her life and will hopefully act as a wake-up call. If the charges are dropped, then she doesn't learn anything, and who knows what she will do to future people in her life. Opie says, we have no plans to drop any charges. As much as I loved her once, I'll never forgive her for what she did to my mother while grieving. A downvoted commenter says, I don't understand why you and your family haven't blocked her and her entire family and kept receiving calls harassment from them. She and her family are terrible people, seeing how her parents have downplayed her criminal behavior. Do not withdraw the charges and let the police prosecute her to the fullest extent of the law. She assaulted not just you, but your sister too. And she's a thief on top of it all. Opie says, because you need a record of the harassment in order to get a protective order and restraining order. If we blocked too soon, it would be our word against hers and likely my mother and sister wouldn't have been able to file charges. Cum says, also, thank whatever power you believe in. This happened before the wedding. EP says, I'd like to believe it was my dad protecting me one last time. And one more Cum says, I'm proud of you for getting out. Please don't drop the charges. OP. Considering that you're a man and she's a woman, those cases are often dismissed. If you leave the charges, if she does this to someone else in the future, the police will be much more likely to believe the next man and maybe help him sooner than they did with you. Smart bringing your sister though. Woman versus woman fight. Police will listen instead of automatically assume who's at fault. I also live in Toronto. Opie says, yeah, I was nervous at first having my sister there, but she was right. She's amazing and had my back, and the police listened to her kind of without question, especially with the reports of the calls. I'm very lucky to have a sister willing to quite literally go to bat for me. If she wasn't there, I doubt it would have ended well for me. So pleased for OP getting out of that situation. And yeah, like the commenter says, I really hope that no charges are dropped because, like I say in these comments, these people will go on and do similar behavior to someone else if they don't learn any lessons. I mean, they may do it anyway, but at least there might be some kind of consequences for her down the line. But it was a pretty hopeful ending to this one, and I really hope you know therapy counseling for OP really does help him out. He was really in the fog at the start there, wasn't he? And you can't blame him because abuse does this to people. It's easy for us on the outside to read the story and see what's going on here. Like OP said, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see past that fog, I think. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.